This is Kavita Suresh Kumar, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to create and delete an Azure Kubernetes cluster using the Azure CLI. I have logged into my Azure portal, so let's check whether do we have any AKS cluster already exist in this account. So there is no AKS cluster. Now let us go to the terminal, and using the Azure CLI, let's start creating the Azure Kubernetes cluster. First we need to log in. Select the account in which we want this cluster to be created. So we have successfully logged into Azure. First we need to create the resource group. Set group, create. We need to specify the name. I'm going to give the name as RG, and then we need to specify the location where we want this resource group to be selected. I'm going to give it as East US. The resource group has been successfully created. Now let us create the Kubernetes cluster. Create. Again we need to specify the name of the cluster. So I'm going to call it as the demo AKS, and then we need to specify the resource group name. So we'll give the name as demo RG, the resource group we created just now, and then we need to give the node count. So I'm going to give it as 1. The Kubernetes cluster is getting created. It would take few minutes to complete this process. The Azure Kubernetes cluster has been successfully created. So we could see all that information about the cluster here. We can see the details of the cluster using the show command. Yes, show name of the cluster, the resource group, demo RG. So you can see the details of the cluster here. Now let us get the credentials. Give the name of the cluster, resource group, we have got the credentials successfully. Now we should be able to access the cluster from the local system. Let's validate that. So we created a single node cluster. Now let us get the deployment information from all namespaces. We could see the deployment is available only in the kube system namespace. Now let's create a deployment YAML file which is going to deploy an Nginx pod, and that pod we will deploy in the default namespace. API version, client. Now we need to give the metadata. First we need to give the name. The name we will give us Nginx deployment. Then we'll give the labels. Nginx. Now let's give the spec. Replicas, we want 3 replicas. The selector should match the labels. Equal to Nginx. Then we will add the template. Metadata. Labels. X. Now let's give it the spec. Containers. name of the container, and we'll give the image version 1.23.4. Then we need to give the ports, container port 80. Okay, the deployment YAML is ready. Now let's deploy this. kubectl create -f, the file name. The deployment has been created successfully. Let's validate that. We could see the Nginx deployment pods is getting created. They have been, the Nginx deployment pods have been deployed successfully and they are running successfully. Let's go and validate that in the UI. Refresh. So we could see the new cluster which we created using the CLI. Click the workloads. So we could see the deployment in Nginx deployment, and then we could see the 3 pods which is running as part of the deployment because we gave the replicas as 3. Now let us go and review all the resources that got created as part of the Azure Kubernetes cluster creation. So you could see these are the resources that got created as part of the Azure Kubernetes cluster creation. Now let us go and delete the Azure Kubernetes cluster and all the resources that got created as part of the Azure Kubernetes cluster creation. Set AKS delete. We need to give the name. The name of the cluster is demo AKS and it is part of the resource group demo.g. So it is asking for the permission. Let's give the permission. Yes. So it has started deleting the Azure Kubernetes cluster. It is going to take few minutes. The Azure Kubernetes cluster has been deleted successfully. Let's go and validate that in the UI. Let's refresh. So we could see all the resources that got created has been successfully deleted. In this demo, we have seen how to create and delete Azure Kubernetes cluster using Azure CLI, as well as we have seen how to create a deployment file and deploy an Nginx pod to the Azure Kubernetes cluster. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching the demo.